Hello and welcome to the 14th episode of the Select Characters Podcast. I'm Sam Yates, I'll be your host, and joining me at a secret underground euchre tournament, I have one friend and two enemies sitting here at the table. I've got the big bid over here, Ryan Dildine. How are you, man?
Hey, how's it going?
Good, going great, man. And I've got to my left, Chris, Jack Bauer Anderson. What's up?
Okay, we're in a euchre tournament?
Yeah,
is that what
we are.
What is that? What is it? What even is that?
Euchre is a card game for 4 players. It's like a set collection bidding kind of game where you only use the face cards and like 9s and 10s, I think.
Okay, and apparently I'm your enemy. Good.
Yeah, the Jack is the trump card. It's called the Bauer. So like it's a little thing there.
Okay then.
But that's okay. Since you're not on my team, if you don't know how to play euchre, we're going to be totally fine. And Enrique Cancel over there going solo. What's up, dude?
These Uno cards are very strange.
Skip 2 and get back. Okay. All right. I'll teach you guys to play euchre later, but in the meantime, shall we get on to what we've been playing?
Let's do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay, so another good week for video games. Let's talk a little bit about what we've been playing, and let's start with Chris.
I haven't been playing all that much this week. I've been playing a little bit of Assassin's Creed Unity, because I'm sort of getting back into the series now. And, being the completionist, I have to pick up all the collectibles and stuff. And even though it's not all that fun to do, it's a nice activity to do while I'm listening to other stuff. Quite a lot of Civ 5. I did play that. And, of course, the Stanley Parable. And that's about it. I haven't really been playing a lot of video games this week.
Cool. Well, hey, those are all good ones at least. So the time you did have, you spent very well, I think.
Yeah, I like to believe so, yeah.
And okay, so how about you, Enrique?
I actually picked up Majora's Mask on 3DS because I felt like taking a little bit of a nostalgia trip and having a lot of fun with it.
Very cool.
Wait, is that on 3DS now?
Yeah, they did a remaster of it. It's actually really cool. They smoothed out a lot of the graphics, like the textures and everything. They did put some little changes to some of the mechanics and boss fights, which is kind of nice because it keeps the game a little bit more fresh and a little bit of quality of life. I know, for example, one of the first quests you get, it's like to find the little bomber kids around the town.
Yeah.
They're all in different hiding spots now, which is kind of cool. So, you weren't just kind of breezing through a lot of the quests like that again. So it was fun.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not really up to date with all the Nintendo stuff, but it's cool that they brought that classic to a newer console. Nice.
Yeah, that's probably my favorite Zelda game to date, right next to Wind Waker.
It's a pretty good one. That kind of makes me feel a little nostalgic because I'm thinking back on it and apparently I don't remember it as well as I thought I should. Definitely makes you want to go back and give it another play.
Was Majora's Mask the Zelda game where you sort of switch between young Link and like adolescent Link? Is that the one?
No, that is Ocarina of Time. Majora's Mask is the one where with the giant moon crashing on the world.
Ah, right.
Like the 3-day cycle, like the Groundhog Day kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah, it has this very dark kind of like foreboding theme to it, which was actually really different for the series.
More of a feeling of immediacy, one would imagine, because you've got only 3 days to finish the quest up.
Well, not really, because you can rewind time really easily with the little ocarina. So the immediacy is not there as much, but it's it's more of this constant looming sense of dread because at the end of the 3rd day the moon's going to crash, and you just kind of get that. It gets progressively closer and closer every day.
It's been so long since I last played that game.
Me too.
It holds up really well, so it's definitely worth picking up again.
Maybe I will.
Awesome. All right, Brian, what you been playing?
Of course, the Stanley Parable, but other than that, I didn't have much time to play this week. I played, I'm still on the Rocket League train, going full steam. And I played a few rounds of Counter-Strike, a few games, and I actually played one that was kind of interesting because I was able to play with a number. I think I was the lowest ranked person in the game, but it was, I was on a pre-made, and I'm assuming the other team was a pre-made, but they were all a few ranks higher than me, and it was just it was really interesting, the difference that only a few ranks makes in the way people communicated, and just the different tone of playing the game, I guess. It kind of made me think about what I was saying last week about how the meta in competitive games affects me, I guess. That game just kind of gave me an interesting look about, I guess, that realm of thinking.
In the games where you have to kind of reach a little bit because the other people are above you, and then you have to kind of push yourself. You're sort of forced to. It's an interesting situation.
Yeah, it was interesting because, like I said, they were only a few ranks higher than me, but they weren't people that I play with on a regular basis. And the call-outs and the way we moved and all that stuff was a lot more like serious and to the point, and it was a lot more efficient than what I'm used to. And not saying I like that better or worse, it was just an interesting deviation from what I'm used to. So yeah,
that's cool. Get out of your comfort zone a little bit. It's always a good thing.
It was a fun game. We won. I enjoyed it.
Very cool. Very cool. Anything else?
No, that's it for me.
All right. As for me, also the same. I've been kind of sick all week. I don't know if you can hear it, but that's me. I've been kind of laid up. Played a little Counter-Strike. Still think that's pretty fun. Still messing with that mission stuff and kind of rolling through all those, I guess you'd call them quests in a way. And so that's pretty fun. Also, a little bit more K's of Quad, but they had an update that reset all the save games.
Oh.
So that was a massive bummer.
Gotta love that when that happens.
Yeah, so I decided I was wrong, decided I liked the game, played a save file for like 20, 25 hours, and then there was an update that invalidated all the save. So I don't even know. I don't know where I'm at with that one right now.
This week's surprisingly light on video games, at least for the four of us. We've all been busy doing other stuff.
Happens. Yeah, I've been working that immune system.
Doesn't sound like it's working.
It's slow. It's slower than it used to be. I can tell you that for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so you guys want to roll on into some topics?
Yep.
All right, let's do it.
My favorite genre of games right now is probably the survivalist genre, or the post-apocalyptic fend for yourself kind of games like DayZ and Rust. And I want to talk to you guys about the overabundance of those kind of games, and if the genre has kind of plateaued where it is, or if it's grown stale, and what innovation could be made in either, how the games are designed, or the like narrative direction or anything like that could improve those types of games, because they do seem to rely very heavily on found narratives. And do you think there's anything that needs to be changed about that?
Well, for one, the game should be finished for once, because the entire Steam store is full of zombie survival games, all of them in early access. So I would love it if one of them was actually released.
Well, GoatZ's out.
That's a big step they should take.
It's finished.
GoatZ is awesome.
What's extra funny is that it's the genre with the most promise, which is why it's so easy to succumb to the forever early access thing. It's because it's the thing that you can put the most stuff in. Those games on paper can be so expansive and cover so much ground that being able to put it all into a single game is such a huge task.
I do understand the allure, because it is a very interesting genre.
Well, yeah, I mean the potential for emergent gameplay is pretty much endless.
Yeah, just Google DayZ, or just search that on YouTube, and you'll see pages upon pages of awesome stuff that happened within DayZ. And I really love that about that genre, because it seems like no other genre can really do that as adequately as most of the survival games, even though most of them aren't even feature complete, which I think is quite a feat.
I kind of feel like most of the games in that genre are coming out as early access because DayZ came out as early access. And, it was kind of the forerunner in that genre.
I can see that. I mean, for me personally, I love that all these survival games really lend themselves to the whole found narrative gameplay style, because, like you said, they're kind of games where you put together your own story, and you're given a very loose framework of mechanics, such as surviving, hunt for food, scavenge, and through that you can kind of build your own gameplay, which I think is super alluring, and that's why I keep going back to those. I mean, I like games like Minecraft. That's a very simple version of those. Don't Starve is a really good survival game with a great aesthetic. DayZ again.
Oh yeah,
they're fun games, but I do think that, like what Ryan said, has a little bit of merit. That DayZ came out. DayZ was already immensely popular on the Arma mod, and when it came out as standalone as a alpha and a early access game, I think a lot of people wanted to cash in on that genre. So you see a lot of unfinished games like Ark, Rust, and things like that, where it just seems like they're kind of copying the same format as DayZ and not really adding anything new to it.
You've got The Long Dark as well. I don't know if you know about that game.
Yeah, I played that a little bit.
Yeah.
Didn't hook me.
Yeah.
I ended up refunding it, but...
Was The Long Dark the one on the mountain?
No, it's like, what is it, Northern Canada or something like that?
Yeah, you're like out in the woods and the snow and stuff, and it's more of a scavenging game than anything else.
It's exploration above everything else, and it's got some survival stuff in there, like hypothermia is a thing there.
It's a very lonely game.
It is. There's nothing going on in that world, because it is a barren wasteland for all intents and purposes. Yeah. Apart from the odd wolf or the fishing shack, there's not really a lot there, which I find, it's an interesting experience in of itself, because usually in survival games they are multiplayer. And then the danger is coming from the other players. But in that game, the danger is, well, nature, the cold and wolves and stuff, which I find interesting. And the way it looks is pretty striking. It's not quite cel-shaded, but it's not fully 3D, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think it's a beautiful game.
Do you think because of the fact that the game's so lonely, it kind of affects its appeal?
Depends on what you're looking for, I guess.
Well, for me, I love DayZ mainly because of the interactions you have with other players, and that's, at least for me, that's how you get through that found narrative. You know, you create these experiences that are completely different and unpredictable because of the people you're interacting with. But I find like a game like The Long Dark, where it's just you, there's only so many things and so many directions that your game can go through, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's one of the reasons I stopped playing, was I was like, yeah, well, I mean, this is cool. It's kind of a relaxing, cathartic thing to just scavenge and go through the landscape. But ultimately, it wasn't the experience I wanted, I guess.
Yeah, I can see why. I'm waiting for the campaign to be finished because they are making a campaign for that game. So maybe when you've got a story to sort of push everything along, it's going to be a lot more interesting. But as it stands now, it's a nice basis. It's a great concept. But again, it's early access. It's missing a lot of stuff.
Do you think that there's a way to sell those games besides early access? Because of like the sheer amount of time that has to be put into making them and, you know, programming everything that goes into such a vast game like a survival game. Is there any way for people, even Minecraft, like since the very beginning was, you know, what, very early access, it was like one of the first things, right? So is there a way to do that where you can spend 5 years building a survival game before you release it? It seems like that survival games and early access are a natural pair.
Is that because of the game or because that's how it's always been?
Well, so that's a good question, but it just like seems like such a vast undertaking that who's going to have the resources, because not only is it a vast undertaking, it's also a niche market. So who has the resources to put everything into making a survival game and then putting it out there to see if it sells?
Well, I'm not really sure if it's as niche as you say it is, because they are on like the bestseller list almost every week on Steam. So apparently a lot of people do like to play them, and I don't think that it's harder to make. Well, making survival games isn't any harder than making, you know, regular AAA games.
I don't know. I feel like survival games really need that audience feedback for you to know what direction to put it in, because it's not like those AAA games where you have a set narrative and a very constricting, I guess, path to follow in development. A lot of these games, the survival games specific, when they're getting put together, it's just a loose framework of mechanics, and you really have no good gauge to tell how they're going to work together until you actually give it to people to try it.
Well, betas are a thing. You can just get people to play the beta of your game, so they can help you to build them. They can give you feedback.
It's just who has the cash pool to be able to do that. They seem like they take longer to me. I don't know. You might be right that they take about the same as anything else.
It sort of seems like it's taking longer to make those games, so that's just because they put it up for early access so early in development. It probably won't take any longer than any other game. It's just you are there playing it basically from the first build.
The last game I played, I didn't alpha, I beta tested because they only opened it up for beta, but Guild Wars 2 was the last game that I really followed the development process, and they were pretty much silent for, I think it was 3 years, and a lot of people thought that the game wasn't even going to be finished. And then finally the ArenaNet came out and said, oh, here's all the new classes and stuff, and then it was another 2 years before they got that game out. So I mean, that was a 5-year development cycle for that game. At least 5 years, it may have been over, but the point I'm getting at is I don't think it's unusual for games to take that long.
I think Chris is right. It's just the fact that we are in on the ground floor with survival games. Sometimes when they go to early access, it's like a level and you can do one thing and just a roadmap of what's going to happen. And
exactly.
They might seem why it takes longer because so much of it is not behind closed doors. It's like out in the open from square one.
Let's jump back to one of the original questions. What do you guys think that needs to happen with survival games to bring that to that next level? And I mean, you know, in terms of mechanics or in terms of player interaction.
I think the survival genre is good on its own, you know, just creating a sandbox and giving players just a ton of tools to work within that. I think what's the word I'm thinking of? Foundation. I think that foundation is fine, and where we're really going to see those games take off is in the modding scene. Because I think the thing I'm most excited for with DayZ is the mods, because it's like there's this really cool survival game just, in the vanilla version, but there's all these things that you see people asking for. And if you put all of those requests by players into one vanilla version of the game, it'd be a mess. But if you're able to do like, I don't know, any scenario you want, you put that in a mod, and then you could have tons of mods, and that way players can go into this game they like and then pick whichever version they want of that game.
I do distinctly remember that the mod has got several different versions of it as well, with different rules and different locales and stuff. So if they're going to do that for the standalone, that's going to be awesome. Yeah, mods make everything better most of the time.
Has there been a survival game where they've given, I guess, developer tools to the community?
Well, I mean, the DayZ mod did that. Minecraft. I mean, well, yeah, look at Minecraft. Holy crap. Like, look at the just swarm of mods there are out there for that game, and that's kept people playing. How old's Minecraft? 6 years?
Something like that, yeah.
And it's still huge.
There's a few workshop things for Don't Starve, too.
Yeah.
I guess it's got to be more single player focused for that.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that might be a cool approach for the survival genre, like just giving like a very solid foundation in terms of, hey, these are the mechanics available, this is the map, these are the resources, and then kind of let players throw together their own framework.
The Bethesda approach.
Yes and no, because I don't know, I feel like for mods for Bethesda are almost like an afterthought.
Yeah, you're right.
I'm talking about like releasing a game where like the whole purpose of the game is for you to kind of create. It's almost, I mean, imagine having your own RPG maker, but it'd be your own survival maker.
Oh, that would be cool.
But multiplayer, unlike Bethesda. So we could go back to like the days of custom maps and stuff like that, where people put so much work in making basically brand new games off of just a pool of assets like provided by Blizzard or something like that. My question as far as moving survival games forward is, do you guys think that there's a point where you can over-simulate things?
How do you mean?
Like, do you think there's a point where they put so much effort into simulation that it becomes tedious or too realistic to the point that it's not fun as an actual game anymore?
Oh, definitely.
And do you think that's counter to the whole purpose of a survival game?
I think with survival games, you need to find like that happy medium where you do want to have some real world concerns just to kind of give players like a motivation. But at the same time, you don't want it to become a burden, because that's when it stops being fun. Like in DayZ, I know people were complaining because I think the hunger and thirst meters were depleting too quickly. And that became a huge issue because people were like, hey, like this is getting really annoying. I don't want to have to stop to eat every, so-and-so because you thought it'd be more realistic. So I think there definitely needs to be kind of that suspension of disbelief where it needs to be a mechanic, but it can't be like a real concern.
Yeah. And not only that, there's an important distinction to be made here. A lot of the systems and mechanics in survival games are meant to emulate real life instead of simulate it to a T.
Because I mean, like what Enrico was saying, the DayZ thing, it's like you start starving in like 20 minutes without food.
Yeah.
on some of the experimental builds and that kind of stuff. And it's like when I play, it's like I want to survive in terms of keeping my character alive. I don't want to survive in keeping a human. Like, I don't want a kid. That's pretty much what your character is right now. It's like, I don't want a child. I want my character in a video game that I have to feed sometimes, not someone who's screaming at me and whining.
I'm literally starving to death.
Yeah.
I mean, it's true. And along with that mechanic, like, in a game like DayZ, a can of beans fills you up as much as like one single orange or something like that. And I'm okay with that. I don't want to have to eat, like whatever like the prerequisite amount of food is in comparison to this bigger portion just because one is more filled than the other, because it kind of ruins the gameplay experience at that point.
No, you don't want to make yourself a 5-course meal to stay alive.
I mean, it's cool when it's like an emulation, because in DayZ you do have, I think you can build stoves now and you can cook food, and cook food, replenishes your hunger a lot faster. And I think like to a greater degree, and that's great. But at the same time, you don't want it to be detrimental to the point where like you need to stop, 3 times a day and make 3 fully cooked meals.
I can sort of see that being fun, but not for very long. That will get boring real quick.
It's fun when you don't have to do it all the time.
Yeah. It's just something. But why do you think that the cooldown for your character having to eat and drink is 20 minutes? Because I think it's deliberately done, so you're always pressured to go exploring instead of staying in one place or just in one small town or something like that. It sort of helps you to well, it sort of forces you to go out into the world and see more of the normally huge maps.
Yeah, but I mean, there's stuff in the game like farming that, I mean, in DayZ, you could literally stay in one spot if you wanted to. Like, once you got the right equipment, which wouldn't take that long, you could stay in one spot, build a farm, and never leave.
Okay.
And you'd be fine. So I don't know. I know that they're still tweaking things like the hunger stuff and, you know, that kind of thing. And I don't know. I guess there is a balance between simulation and emulation. I think personally it should be tilted toward the emulation side.
Yeah. You know, I actually like that about DayZ, that you can, you know, you do have the option to build a home base, provided you can, you know, flesh out the resources yourselves. Because I've been on servers where people have makeshift camps with a couple different tents. They have a repaired vehicle. They sent out search parties to look for food and supplies, and it's a really cool atmosphere that you start from just wandering on your own to creating a sort of community. And I think a successful Survivor game can give players that option of creating those things.
I think that, like, I mean, you see people complain in survival games that they're too focused on PvP and it's just a big deathmatch. But I mean, I think the concept of having camps, at least for my group of friends, like, we stopped looking for PvP when we were able to find a good persistent server that our stuff didn't disappear on, because we just wanted to build our camp up in case of something. So, like, in case one of us dies, we can just run back to camp and grab guns and gear and stuff. And the game switched focus from PvP to surviving.
Yeah, and it's a cool concept because, like, when I play with my friends and, you know, we have those camps set up, it, you know, the game shifts gear and it becomes a matter of, hey, we're going to split up into parties, and while these guys rest, we're going to stay up at night, make sure nobody finds us. Or you go on search parties where, you know, Group A goes out and looks for weapons and clothing while Group B looks for food. And it kind of, at least for us, it opened more avenues of gameplay from then on out, from just having a not permanent base.
Yeah, and that would mean that the stakes would be raised quite a bit, because dying would mean that you lose a lot of your stuff and you have to backtrack to your base and stuff.
How much of the survival game sort of appeal for you guys comes from that sense of immersion that comes from the first-person perspective in the games with nicer graphics? Is something I'm thinking about. My favorite survival games are like Unreal World, Cataclysm, Dark Days Ahead, and a game called Neo Scavenger. Mm-hmm. And those are all either tile-based or hex-based, turn-based survival games that have all the components of having to gather food and manage hunger and water and build shelters and all that stuff. But it's not in real time, and it's not from a first-person perspective at all.
The immersion factor is the entire pull of the genre, at least for me. If I want to be immersed in this hostile world that is inhabited by, I don't know, dangerous animals or sometimes zombies and other players who at least act as scared or as aggressive as you, and, you know, don't trust anyone that they meet because of previous run-ins with people who killed them for their stuff and all that. I find that the biggest pull of the genre for me.
One of my favorite survival genres is Don't Starve, and I like it because it has that kind of cartoony aesthetic. It has that really dark, I guess almost like colonial, like steampunk kind of feel to it.
That's Lovecraft.
Yeah, I guess that's Lovecraftian, but I mean, for me, it's really cool and that's really attractive. It makes the game fun, but I still find it immersive where, you know, you do have that hunger meter, you do have that, you know, you can get cold, and if you get cold, you can get sick, and you have like that, I guess, that insanity meter for when it gets dark. So it still has those elements that compel you to go into that immersion aspect of the game, but for me, like, the aesthetic, it plays a huge important part.
Or just the mechanical day-to-day surviving. Like, this is how I need to survive, figure out this puzzle, you know, calculate what I need, how long I need it, how do I get it, like that kind of stuff.
See, but that's you. You are very focused on systems and mechanics. It's kind of funny, like, you are very focused on mechanics, and Enrique is very focused on the aesthetic, and I'm a big fan of atmosphere. As long as the atmosphere is good, I can forgive badly implemented mechanics or bad graphics.
And a lot of those things come together in survival games, which is kind of interesting. That's kind of what I was finding interesting. Like, talking about how do survival games move forward, it's like there's these different tracks available to them because the games encompass, you know, so many different concepts.
I hope that in the future they are going to try out different locales, like, for instance, what The Long Dark did, which is northern Canada, which I never really saw in a survival game before. But I would like to see more stuff like that instead of, you know, your typical forests and abandoned cities and stuff like that. I would like to see different locales. Maybe mash it with science fiction.
For
what
it's worth, Don't Starve is actually getting a pirate expansion, which is gonna be kind of cool, like a stranded on a desert island kind of thing.
Oh, see, I like that.
That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. Like, when I say I think mods are, I think that they're where the genre has the most potential, because it's like, take any sandbox survival game. It's like, if you wanted to have a pirate version, all you'd have to do is mod a pirate version, you know? Or if you wanted to do a survival version in the desert, you would do that. You know, it'd probably take time, but just the toolbox they hand you is enough to really keep the genre going.
I hope that it's a genre that is here to stay for a very long time, because it does offer something that a lot of other genres can't do. And apparently it is so interesting that it sort of bleeds over in other genres as well.
The best thing that this genre has to offer is when they put you in the game, it's purely choices that you're making. You're not really making any calculations, because there's nothing you can know for sure. You can know, there's probably nobody in that building over there, but you can't actually calculate it to a certain percentage or whatever,
Yeah.
It's like you have to make that choice to go in there, and the entire game is choices, so nothing is set in stone. I think that's the draw for it, because people, they're thinking no matter what I do, something unexpected could happen.
Yeah, and the entire gameplay experience feels more organic. Like you were saying, it's, you have to make those choices of like, hey, do I want to stop and eat as much food as I can right now, or do I want to push it and see if I can find something better down the line? And a lot of those choices, the whole aspect of gameplay revolves around those choices you make. And sometimes, you make the wrong choice and you decide to go a little too far and you die of hunger because you can't find anything. Or other times you decide to stay in one building a little too long and you get ambushed by players that just happen to come up behind you. So that's definitely the biggest appeal for me in terms of those the survival aspect.
Yeah, those moments are awesome. They're just stalking around looking for parts, and you run into a group of other players. Those situations can get really tense really quickly.
Yeah, and the best, what I think is cool about that, going back to the choices thing, it's like in a game like Counter-Strike, you have no choice but to fight the enemy. Like, you can decide not to, but you're going to get killed.
Mm-hmm.
In survival games, it's like if you see somebody and they see you, and like you're both agreeing that you're threats to each other pretty much, and it's over something, like you have the choice to just not participate.
Yeah. If
you don't think it's worth it.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
Like it's not really forcing you into anything. I think that's cool.
One of my favorite moments I think from DayZ was, me and a buddy of mine were actually going the middle of the night. We decided to be safer to move to avoid players. And we're coming up to this barn, and we see like a flash of light moving around inside the barn. And we quickly turn our flashlight off. And I guess we didn't do it fast enough because the person inside turned theirs off. And there's this moment of tension for a good 2-3 minutes where we're just kind of waiting to see what's going to happen. And the person in the barn just kind of flips on their flashlight and just does like a small Morse code thing to us, just like, on and off, and my buddy decides to respond, and we both just kind of leave our flashlights on and decide to go our separate ways. And it was just like a really cool 5 minutes of tension where you didn't know what was going to happen.
See, yeah, that is stuff that I really like, because that is stuff that you will remember, and the game wasn't built specifically to give you that experience. That it's completely made by players. That is what I find so interesting.
Nothing was forced on you.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's why it's more memorable too, because you never go through the motions. It's like every decision is a conscious one.
Yeah, or sometimes you will stumble upon situations that you were not a part of, and you have no other choice than to become a part of it. There was this one time, me and my mate, we were just running through forests, and we came upon this huge field in DayZ, and it was surrounded by forests. Apparently, there was a firefight going on. It was a full server, so there were quite a lot of people there, and apparently there were two groups fighting against each other, but we couldn't see any of them because they were all hiding away in the tree lines and shooting at each other across the tree lines and stuff, and there was a helicopter going overhead and everything, and we sort of had to maneuver our way through an ongoing firefight by people who had superior weaponry. And that was great. It took us an hour, but it was so much fun.
If we're concerned with where the genre is going to go in the future, the more you set up players for that kind of experience, the more your game's going to grow.
I think ideally, the culmination of the survival genre would probably be something close to what we see in EVE Online, where it's this massive system of economies and corporations, but it's entirely run by the player.
Oh yeah. I've talked to my buddies about this. I think, along with the modding stuff, but I think DayZ is, that's really the only survival game I played. But survival games, I think, are the best when people get pissed off at each other in real life. And then you have this conflict going on outside of the game that gets settled inside the game. That is awesome.
And without the proper framework that they could just let you loose inside of it, that makes all of that, able to come to a culmination.
Yeah. I think that's just awesome. I love when groups, clans or whatever, get pissed off at each other and raid camps and that kind of thing.
Survival games, fun.
I want to talk about licensed games, because it seems that licensed games are universally a bit rubbish, and I don't really know why. Well, I can think of several reasons, but even so, licensed games can be good. Look at, for instance, Spider-Man 2 for the GameCube, which was pretty awesome.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
that game was fun. I forgot about that.
It was. You could explore the entirety of New York City. You could even shoot your web at a helicopter and let it carry you over to the Statue of Liberty. That was a great game, and that was a movie tie-in game. And then you've got the Adventures of Riddick games.
Yep, Escape from Dark Athena.
Yeah, Escape from Dark Athena and Butcher Bay.
And
they didn't follow the story from the movies, but they were tie-ins.
Yep. Let's not forget X-Men Origins Wolverine, which was fantastic.
Oh yeah, that was a really good hack and slash game.
Yeah. Or True Lies for the Super Nintendo. Nobody. Okay. That game's great.
I was like, what is he talking about?
Showing your age, Samuel.
Yeah. True Lies was a good movie tie-in game for the Super Nintendo. It was like a top-down kind of shooter game. Right. Where you played as Arnold. It was good.
It's all I've ever wanted from a game.
Wasn't there a Commando game as well?
I didn't play that one if there was.
I think it
wouldn't surprise me.
I think there was, but it was just like a side-scroll shooter, kind of like Contra, which, I mean, it wasn't bad.
No, they got away... back in that era, they got away with a lot of shitty movie tie-in games because if you're just making a platformer, it's hard to screw it up too bad.
Right.
Although, I mean, they found a way. Like, Home Improvement's not great.
10 to 2 man.
So I mean, like, no matter how hot JTT is, there is a way to screw up a platformer. But there are a few good ones.
What about the Jungle Book on the NES?
Oh yeah,
the Aladdin game was fantastic.
Mm-hmm. That was balls to the walls hard, man.
Yeah, that was that Game of Wonders level with the lava and the flying carpet.
See, I never even reached that bit. Because I ran into Car, the snake, that was the first boss in that game. And 11-year-old me couldn't get past it for the life of me.
I'm convinced that game was Battletoads with the Disney skin, because those races were a little bit too punishing.
Yeah, it was not a kid's game.
But I mean, all joking aside though, I think it's a telling sign about how a lot of those older titles back then got away with, licensed games back then could get away with a lot more than what we see now, and I think a lot of it has to do with, I guess, with the content that was in them. I feel that by making these games that are, based on movies or certain stories, we're kind of constricting them in what you can do in terms of gameplay and narrative, and I think that is a huge detriment to just the whole nature of video games in general.
Can I say one more good one? GoldenEye 64.
Oh
yeah, there you go. GoldenEye 64.
Okay. That's I figure that's too good of an example to just let that one slide.
Yeah, was that one of the first games that Grant Kirkhope did the soundtrack for? Because I think it was.
I'm not familiar with that, but I believe you.
He did most of the soundtracks for Rare games.
So I would like to unsubscribe from Video Game Music Facts.
Oh, come on.
Well, so now that we're all done naming all these games that we loved.
Wait, Chippendale Rescue Rangers. Okay, now seriously.
Wasn't that?
Now that we're done naming all these games that are great and that we loved. Why are these games so bad? Why are licensed games so terrible?
A lot of them just feel really lazy.
Yeah, or they have to come out within a certain time period so that they can line up with the movie or
they're rushed.
Whatever it is. So they get rushed and they have shitty content and you end up with The Matrix for PS2, right?
Or Avatar for 360.
Oh.
Yeah, it just feels like a lot of these games are, like Sam said, they're on a very tight deadline to coincide with the release of the movie, and they're just meant to be cash-ins. It's like going to the store and buying a mug theme from the movie. It's just another product.
Yeah, which I find a shame, because who wouldn't want to play a good video game based on one of their favorite movies? You'd think that a lot of those developers would want to do the franchise justice and make the best product that they can.
Their hands might be tied. They might be stuck in a situation where they can't really... And a lot of that stuff gets shopped out to, not as prominent development studios.
Yeah, shovelware developers.
Right, they send it to the places that'll do it cheap and do it fast. And just make as much as they can off the back of the sales of the movie.
Yeah, I was about to say, you don't really see a lot of AAA developers making movie tie-in games. It's always, they're probably just shipping it out to a studio that's all too happy to get paid to make a video game, so they kind of throw in really poorly put together POS.
Yeah. And it's games that otherwise would never have been made.
Yeah, it's true.
So when I was in grade school, I read Aragon, the book Aragon. And that movie came out and I watched it and I was like, oh, this is hot garbage. And then I remember looking through Game Informer back in the day and seeing an Aragon review, and I was like, well, I know this is going to be just a dog crap game. There's no other reason this game would have been made if there wasn't a movie.
Yeah, a movie.
And the game was terrible too. So
it seems silly on its face, but the fact is that IP moves product. I mean, it does. Just by having Aragorn on the box, you're going to sell a certain number of copies to people who recognize it and want to have more of that, you know?
Yeah, but I mean, it makes you wonder, though, like, does the amount of money and effort they put into releasing this game, is that really offset by the paltry sales they're going to have? Because, I mean, it's a pretty widely accepted fact that video game movie tie-ins are kind of bad.
But if it didn't, they wouldn't do it. And it's bad because they know that they're going to get this number. So like the cost has to come in underneath that enough for there to be profit. And that's probably part of why it's so bad.
Oh, yeah. Actually, that kind of reminds me, like, I was reading an article about how Adam Sandler is still able to make movies.
His paid vacations.
Terrible. But it's like, it's the studios know his movies are going to make a certain amount, even if they're terrible. They always, like, he very reliably makes a certain amount every time a movie of his comes out. And I think it's the same thing that happens with games. It's like they're thinking, if we make this crappy game for this much and release it, we're gonna have this many people buy it at least.
So all they have to do is come in under that.
So I guess it's super lazy if you look at it that way.
Well, it's not lazy. It's just, I mean, that's just economics. That's just how it works. I mean, but the thing is, it would be to actually make that a good game and hope for more sales. It becomes an element of risk. And it's sort of like, why assume risk when you can have a guaranteed profit margin?
Yeah.
Because it shows that risk might net them an exorbitant amount of money. Look at the Riddick games. They are still remembered today, and people are still buying those two games.
Yeah, but the Riddick games are a special case, because, I mean, if I recall, Vin Diesel came out and made his own game studio just to have those games made.
Wasn't it made by Starbreeze?
To double check on that.
I'm assuming no one knows. I'm gonna say...
I remember those being, like, critically applauded games, but I don't remember them selling terribly well.
No.
But I could be wrong because I wasn't paying attention to stuff like that then. But I remember hearing that they were great, but I didn't end up playing it until, maybe 8 to 10 months later on the old Xbox.
All right, some facts. It's not Starbreeze Games. It's was it Tygon Studios?
Right.
And that is actually the developer that was founded by Vin Diesel, and they're responsible for Chronicles of Riddick, Escape from Butcher Bay, Wheelman, and then Riddick: The Merc File.
Huh. That would explain why it was so unique.
Yep, Assault on Dark Athena. Yeah, dude. Like I said, all these. It's a really unique case because this isn't a studio that decides, hey, let's cash on the movie. This is, I guess, an actor that has a lot of passion for this, saying, hey, I want a really good video game based on this movie. That's why arguably these games are a lot higher in caliber than what you see from, let's say, Avatar the movie.
Oh, did not know that. That's actually interesting.
Yeah, dude. I mean,
great to know that he wanted it so badly that he set up a company especially for this.
Oh, dude, Vin Diesel's a huge nerd, man. He loves like video games and D&D and all that stuff. So I mean, the fact that he has like that passion to make sure it's a quality product, I mean, it speaks loads of it.
Oh, I know that he loves to play games. I know that he played World of Warcraft for years upon years, but I didn't know that he loved the medium so much that he actually wanted to make them. That's cool.
Yeah, but I guess backtracking a bit, but I mean, I think we can, between the four of us, we can agree that Dark Athena was a decent game, or like Escape from Butcher Bay. Like they may not have sold like astronomically, but they're still a fun game.
I thought Escape from Butcher Bay was amazing.
Yeah, that was the one I played. I did not play the other one, but Butcher Bay was absolutely incredible. It took stealth mechanics to a place that they'd never been before.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
And it had sort of that RPG kind of aspect to it where you're running around inside the prison and talking to people and making deals and stuff.
Yeah, and like the side quests and all that.
It was great. Yeah,
I loved how gritty it was. Like, you had to go look for a shiv, or you had to find the materials to make a shiv with, and you had to pressure some people into helping you and stuff. And the way that Butcher Bay looked, like that very depressing industrial atmosphere, I thought that was really well done. And it was in keeping with the aesthetic of the films without feeling overly derivative, if you know what I mean.
And I think that's like a big difference right there. But it's Butcher Bay was the original one that I played that I love. And I think it's because that title is inspired by the Riddick franchise. And they took, inspiration and it let them kind of go in their own direction in terms of like the mechanics and the aesthetic for the game versus having a game that's directly based on a movie where you're constricted in terms of the story you can tell, what can happen, the mechanics available to you.
Something that happens a lot in superhero tie-in games, right, is they follow the story of the movie, but they throw in all the other characters from the comics or something in there, even though they've got no business being in that story. Mm-hmm. That annoys the hell out of me when that happens.
I don't like it when it's the same story at all because I've already seen that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I don't want to play through the events of the movie. I don't. That's like from square one. They've already started, on the wrong foot with me.
Yeah, like there's no sense of discovery. It's it's like you know where it's gonna go.
I'd rather live through the story, but with a shit ton more of player agency, than play through the same story that deviates somewhat from the original ones, just so they can shoehorn in other beloved characters.
How do you feel about the Lego game?
See,
those are fun.
Those have a special place in my heart.
Yeah, I think they get away with that by just having good mechanics.
Yeah.
Well,
I think that by playing well, they get away with a lot of the things that we would say are bad about tying.
I think the good mechanic is probably up for argument, but I think it's just the fact that they have a very solid foundation in terms of, well put together mechanics. At least, you're not going to encounter a lot of bugs. They're relatively simple to get into, whether you're a small child or an adult.
Plus, they usually use IPs that are very popular, like they did with Lord of the Rings, and now with all the they did Marvel stuff as well, and DC Comics. Like they're basically taking everything that people love and making it into Lego, and everybody loves Lego. So the two together.
That's an interesting diversion too, right? Because they're tying into the IP, not tying into any specific movie or specific plot line or anything like that.
Yeah. By the time that Lego Lord of the Rings came out, the movies were 10 years old? Something like that?
Yeah, they're pulling from the world. So maybe that's a better way to go about it too, is not to tie yourself specifically to that one story, but just tie yourself to the world and let us explore more of it through the video game.
Yeah, I think the only real tie-in was the Lego movie, The Game, which is a terrible title.
No, I mean, well, the Lego Star Wars series is the same way. It ties into the story.
Oh, yeah, but with a lot more player agency, which is why people presumably play games. Plus, it lets you walk around the sets that you liked from the movies.
Yeah.
Which I think is great, especially in Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter. I mean, I grew up on those movies. And getting to walk around in them with a Lego character on a Lego set.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
I think the Lego thing adds a lot of the draw because it's, I mean, it's like I could go, if I had a virtual tour of Hogwarts, like, cool. But if somebody said, now do you want to see the Lego version? I'd be like, yeah. And they're like, it's the exact same thing. It's just out of Legos. Still want to see it.
Man, you know what was a really fun movie tie-in game as well? Willow on the NES.
Willow was pretty good. Yeah.
It's just like a top-down hack-and-slash Zelda RPG.
But good.
Yeah. Okay, well,
I like that one.
What are some examples of, like, what's the worst movie tie-in game you've played?
Kick-Ass 2.
I didn't even know that was a game.
Oh, yes. It is so bad. It copies the Arkham series combat system, but it doesn't do it all that well. It looks terrible. And the guy that voices Kick-Ass, he's got a very distinct German accent, which is where the developer is housed. It's so terrible.
I feel like it'd be easy to say E.T.
Yeah.
That's a cheap shot, that. It was so bad that they've buried it all in the desert.
I can't even think of the last tie-in game I bought, because I avoid them so...
it's generally something to be wary of. Yeah, unless the reviews come in and it's good or something like that.
Yeah, The Walking Dead, but I mean, it's not really a movie, but The Walking Dead was the last tie-in game I bought, but that was awesome.
That was great. Unless you're talking about the tie into the TV show.
No, okay.
Which was fucking terrible.
There's the bad. I guess that's the one that shows us the good and the bad, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because, the tie into the show was bad, but... the Telltale, that game was awesome.
Yeah,
there was another Walking Dead game besides the Telltale one?
Yeah,
you play as Daryl. You play as Daryl and his brother.
I think that like a good 80% of the game was just copy and pasted assets.
Yes. Yeah, it was terrible.
I think I must have run into the same gas station about like 3 or 4 times, like in the span of like probably like a couple hours. But again, it ties back to the whole thing where these are games that are on a very tight budget, I'm assuming, and a time limit, so they kind of cut corners and do what they have to do to get it, to meet the ship date. So
I wish it didn't happen.
It seems it's just strange that we know they're cash grabs, but they still sell. It's just strange to me.
Well, they don't sell to us.
Yeah, exactly. They don't sell to core gamers because core gamers have wisened up by now. But there's a very, very, very large amount of people out there that don't care. They just want to play a game based on a movie they like for a couple hours, and that's it.
Yeah, or it's a gift for somebody who they know likes it. I mean, it's just... That whole market is so much bigger than you could possibly imagine. And it's hard to see it because we're inside the part that we are.
I felt when I work retail, I saw a lot of parents getting those movie tie-in games as gifts for like their children.
Oh yeah, because they don't know.
Yeah, get it from the budget bin.
It seemed like it was just kind of I guess like intentionally targeting the like uninformed consumer, because they walk into the store and what do they see? They see this game based on this movie they just saw that their whole family loves. So like, oh, clearly the game must be just as good. We're like, oh hey, like we like the movie, I'm sure they'll like the game.
I mean, that's just IP sells. It just does. Just recognizable brands move product.
If I was some tired parent who walk into a GameStop. It's like, what do I got to get for my kid? Nah, I'm Walking Dead. Whatever, get it. I don't know. No, I'm not a parent, so maybe I'm I'm a very negative sounding parent.
No, but it's true, because I actually remember, because I was still working at GameStop when that game came out, and I do remember a lot of parents came in like, oh, how much, this game looks good because it's got Daryl and he's one of the more popular characters, and like that's the sole reason people even pick the box off the wall. They said IP definitely has a strong like impact on sales for it.
Too bad it's so often misused.
Yeah, I wonder if you made a compilation of all the IP-based games, I wonder if you would come out with more bad than good. I guess, obviously, otherwise why would we all have that impression? But I wonder just how those scales are lined up.
Well, you can make a video out of that one.
No, I mean, I'd actually really be interested in seeing a breakdown of that. Like, taking all those IP games and, I guess, seeing how good versus bad they are, but also seeing how closely they tie into the movie and if there's any kind of correlation.
It'd be worth looking into, because it's definitely a unique sector of games, to be sure.
Yeah.
I don't know, because I feel like the more they tie into the movie, the less interested I am, because like we talked about, it's like you've already seen the movie, why play through it? But then I'm thinking about games like the Lord of the Rings. Was it the Third Age?
Two Towers.
The RPG, the Third Age.
The Third Age. It was like a turn-based, and it was like, I think you were following around the Fellowship.
Yeah.
And just kind of cleaning up the mess that they make, because they don't freaking care.
I say, because War of the North did the same thing, which, I mean, I actually thought it was kind of fun. It was just like a standard ARPG, but it was the same thing where you were, a ranger, an elf, and a dwarf, and you were pretty much following the Fellowship, or just kind of creating a diversion to make their lives easier.
Yeah, well, the point I'm getting at is I remember playing the Third Age, and I was like, well, this is Lord of the Rings, but it's not Lord of the Rings, and it's not doing it, It felt like abuse of the IP, I guess.
Yeah, it didn't have that magical touch that the films or the books had.
Well, see, conversely, like War of the North had the opposite effect on me, where you were actually going through visiting the locations from the actual book and the movies, but I don't know, it still held up on its own. You did have like those random like interactions with the characters that felt a little ham-fisted. I think there's one part where you're in Rivendell and you get to, run into Frodo and Strider and all of them, and those feel a little awkward. But the rest of the time, I mean, you're going through you get to the Mines of Moria before they get there. You get to, I think, like Rivendell before they get there, and like you do all these events in the background. And it actually felt like a fun game.
I can leave it.
I guess my issue with it is I feel like, because I know the story from the films or the books is going to happen anyways in the game. Mm-hmm. The deviant game, if you're gonna call it that, that's gonna happen anyway. So it's like your actions are even more worthless than just playing through the story.
Do you think that had something to do with why Shadow of Mordor was so fun?
What do you mean?
Yeah,
because you're in the Lord of the Rings universe, but you've nothing to do with Lord of the Rings at all.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Basically, I mean, I guess some of the lore ties in certain ways, like Gollum's running around up in there, but like You could play that and not even really feel like it's a Lord of the Rings game.
Oh, that's true. I mean, I think it goes back to what we were saying earlier, that a lot of it has to do with just how constricted they are in terms of the game itself compared to other games that just have free reign. That's why you see success of a game like, Batman Arkham Knight, it's obviously based on the Batman mythos, and you have like a lot of signature characters, but they run and do their own thing. So those games are hugely successful versus a game like, let's say, I don't know, Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull. There's very little they can do with that game.
The Arkham games definitely have a little bit more leeway as far as not necessarily being a direct tie-in with another product too.
Yeah.
So that probably helps them out a pretty good bit.
And they were in their own self-contained universe.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It just seems to me that they're only good when they do their own thing within another IP's universe.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Because if you get too close to the story, you're either replaying it or you're playing alongside it, but you don't actually affect anything, so it's not really enjoyable.
And if it is a direct tie-in, you want more of the same thing. You don't want the same thing again on a different screen.
The video game console wars are kind of a constant debate that we keep having every generation of systems, where you have, PlayStation 1, you had Xbox and PlayStation 2, you have PlayStation 3, 360, and now we're up to PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. And I was kind of curious to ask you guys, what do you guys think of this whole concept of, what current gen consoles are? And, when this war keeps happening, you have people debating on, our system's more powerful than yours, or our system has better features. But at the end of the day, us as consumers and gamers, what is it that we're really looking for from a console?
Let's do a little tally up first. Which consoles does everybody own?
I currently own a PlayStation 4, Wii U, PC, and then various handhelds like the Vita and the 3DS.
Right. I've got a PlayStation 4 and I've got a PC.
I've got a Wii U, I've got a PC, and just a whole smattering of consoles all the way back through the generations.
All right. Mostly Nintendo, right?
Yeah, mostly Nintendo. I got a Sega.
All right.
I've got a Buster Brothers arcade machine that's halfway broken.
What? That's awesome.
Yeah.
I've got a PC, which is my daily driver, and then a PlayStation 2 and a Wii, so I'm pretty on top of things.
Well, okay, I guess using that, I'm going to start the discussion. Like, why do you guys only have those consoles?
Games. That is, isn't that the exclamation point? Games exclamation point? That's what the consoles are. That's what they sell. That's what they should be.
Not this generation. This generation, there are more media centers that also play games, and which is why I bought a console now, because I wanted a media center that plays games. And I thought the PlayStation 4 looked the best, so I got that one.
Interesting.
I didn't need a media console because I already have my PC, and that's pretty much what I use.
Yeah.
I bought a console because I think Destiny was coming out, and I had a lot of friends that were picking it up for the PlayStation 4, and I decided, you know what, this looks like a fun game to play multiplayer, so let me pick up a console to do that.
That's the exact same reason why I bought it when the Destiny bundle was announced, because it looked really, really fun, and it was, the best time to get PlayStation 4, at least for me, because that was the only game that seemed interesting to me at the time. Little did I know, but that's a story for a different day.
Huh. So you mean as far as like Netflix or TV, Hulu stuff?
Yeah, Spotify.
In what way?
Spotify is on there.
Okay.
I can control that with my iPad. I can do the same with my PC, but my PlayStation is hooked up to a 1,000-watt speaker system, so that's better. And I got Netflix on there, and I use Netflix the most. And Netflix and Spotify. I don't play games on my PlayStation 4 all that often. It's mostly PC.
So it's like a new sort of set of demands as far as what people are looking for in consoles.
Yeah, but wasn't that the angle that Microsoft and Sony were taking with the new consoles anyway? Because
It did, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, because when the One was announced by Microsoft, they didn't really talk about games. It was just TV this, TV that.
Fantasy football, also TV. Also, we're making a TV show. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
No, but that's true though. You see with the newer consoles.
No, you're right. You need a box in the living room.
Yeah, like the whole focus was, hey, we have integrated Twitch streaming, we have YouTube and, media console. Everything was just more related about the functionality, what you could do with it, as opposed to the actual games.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I have played games on my PC since a very long time. I don't want to
thereabouts.
Yeah, just a very long time. So, but I'm not like a PC master race. Like, I'm totally open to getting a console. But for me also, it's like I want to get like a home entertainment thing. Because if it was just for games, it's like I'll play on my PC. And if I miss a couple exclusives, like who cares? But now that they're becoming like these entertainment hubs for your house, they're a lot more enticing.
Yeah, exactly.
So they're a nice feature to have, but they don't really sway my decision to buy them either way.
Okay.
I just want to play video games in the living room. I want to sit on the couch and play video games on the TV. So I'm going to go with whatever allows me to do that. And the other stuff is a nice bonus, but it's not necessary.
Nintendo consoles, those are the only ones that draw me in for the games, because I enjoy couch co-op stuff, and Nintendo is all over that. And Sam was saying, it's like if I want to play games on the couch, that's going to be the console I get, is a Nintendo one.
And the Nintendo console is also the most responsible choice in terms of first-party games, because the first-party lineup on Nintendo consoles is also it's mostly pretty strong. Whereas the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One, they've been really hit and miss in terms of first-party games.
What I think the big unifying factor with the console stuff is going to be is something like the Steam Link or like the Steam machines.
Right.
That whole process that's coming out, then you can have computer and console all together in one, play games where you want to. Like, with my eyes looking ahead, that's where I'm
still
at.
not sold on the whole concept of a Steam machine, because I still cannot figure out what the demographic is for it.
Yeah, I agree. They also seem to be very expensive for what they essentially are, and which is something that I really don't like, because there's no reason for me to get a Steam machine because the PC that I have now is already stronger and better. And if I got the Steam Link, then I can just use my PC to stream games to my TV. I don't need a different console altogether. It seems to me that them releasing the Steam to these Steam machines, because you don't really need.
Well,
it could be, but the Link looks like a great product.
The funny thing is that I don't think Valve has released a Steam machine yet. All the Steam machines that we're seeing are third-party, developed by Alienware and other companies. So as far as Valve concerned, like, that's not their problem.
Well, you'd think that they have a stake in them because they're called Steam machines.
But not really. I mean, they're Steam machines because they're essentially just PCs that are very limited in their capability.
It's applicable to every console, by the way.
Yeah, no, but I mean, no, really, because the Steam machines that we've seen so far, like, they're third-party developers, and I don't think Valve really gains anything from their purchasing or their selling because it's not like they're working.
I'm sure they get a cut.
I'm sure they do, but it doesn't make or break them.
And it lets them offload the hardware production. You know what I mean? Like, they just provide the operating system and interface and all that stuff, and they just let somebody else build the hardware because they don't have infrastructure in place to build hardware like that. Because, like...
But they do, and they're working on it.
Yeah, that's true. They obviously are with the Vive and stuff like that. But as far as the question of what do you want in your living room... Because that's the question, right? Like, that's the whole console space is in the living room. I want to play video games in the living room.
Yeah.
So can I also get a media center? Can I do this? Can I do that? That's the area of competition. And as far as what separates each thing out from the other, the media center stuff seems to me to be very standardized. You know whatever you buy is going to have Netflix on it. You know it's going to have Spotify.
Yes.
Whatever, it's the games that are the crucial distinguishing factor. And so, like, in that situation, something like the Steam Link, that's the one I want because it's got all the games from my PC, basically, that have controller support.
Yeah, and I've noticed, like, a big appeal to consoles in general is that it's just the simplicity and, like, ease of entry. I used to have my PC hooked up to the television, and for me that was great because I had the Steam, like, the big picture display set up, and I could sit on the couch and play co-op, but I realized that setting that up for the average consumer might be a little bit more difficult than what they want.
That's a good point.
So for them, the console, the console is just a perfectly streamlined experience. All you have to do is plug and play. There's no setup, there's no downloading, there's no customizing. It's just a matter of you put in a disc you want to play and you're good to go.
Although actually plug and play is even not what it used to be though, because you still need to set up an internet connection and you still need to set up all those media hooks and tie-ins and all that stuff. It's not like it used to be. Like, you can plug and play, but I guess there's also a lot more there to it.
That's true, but I find like the system for the most part is pretty automated, at least for a PlayStation and Xbox. I mean, you literally, unless you're doing it via Wi-Fi, just plug in a hard line to the back, you're good to go.
And that's the thing is, like, how do I bring my PC into the living room? That's always been the question, right?
Yeah.
Because they've been separate spaces, PC in the office and then your bigger TV in the living room. But now what you're starting to see is PC is creeping into the living room space. I guess mostly through Steam initiatives, but, other things like making a media center or an HTPC, plugging it in with HDMI, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But the PC's starting to make inroads into the living room, and if that's true, then the console gets a little bit of a different demographic because it's going to appeal more to the plug-and-play people and less to the people who are willing to dig into all that techie stuff and create the environment that they feel the most happy with or comfortable with.
Do you think we're reaching a point of diminishing returns in terms of what the home consoles can offer now?
I don't think so. Why would that be? Because every new iteration has got more features. It seems to me that instead of competing which company has the best games, they're now trying to push forward as many features on top of the games that the other companies don't have.
And it's still going to be the easiest entry point as far as like getting into video games. It's still going to be easier to have a console than a computer. Yeah. If you're a person who's buying pre-built stuff, obviously cost-wise the console shines in comparison.
Yeah.
But that's the thing is that you're getting people who are buying a TV, maybe buying a surround sound system, whatever. Now you need a third thing. Like, that's not enough on its own. You need something else. Even beyond a cable box. Now you need something to, access all these other things, and it's like, what is it going to be? If you like video games, it's probably going to be a console, because there's no ready-made PC sort of inroad to the living room yet.
I guess, like, the way I'm looking at it is, I'm looking at the evolution of, like, the PlayStation to 1, 2, 3, 4, and Xbox, but I'm already kind of getting everything that I want out of a console. In terms of the features, what are they really going to be able to add that we don't have yet?
I'm pretty sure that people ask themselves that same question with the last generation. generation and the one before that one. New stuff is constantly coming out, and people's demands are changing all the time. A new service might pop up that people want to use, or, some new peripheral comes out that people really, really want. That stuff evolves, man.
Yeah, I was going to say, we don't know what it'll be, but there will be something.
Oh, yeah.
Like every iteration.
Definitely.
And they're trying. I think that's what they assumed that Kinect would be. It just didn't pan out. They were trying to find something new to bring to that situation. It's just that it didn't work. But for every misstep, that just means that one thing is eventually going to pay off.
But the thing with Kinect was there wasn't really a demand for that one. They just included it.
Yeah, it's kind of a shot in the dark.
You're talking about the first or second iteration of the
I'm talking about the one that was shipped when the Xbox One was first released. That one wasn't optional.
The pack-in.
Yeah. You needed that one for the Xbox One to work. That wasn't a feature that people asked for because most people don't really care about Kinect stuff, but it was there anyway, and it wasn't optional.
I wonder how much of the stagnation is our fault then. Microsoft tried to do some really interesting stuff, right? Like they tried to give you a Kinect, and they tried to make...
they did.
Like take away from physical discs and move to digital purchasing and digital storefronts and all this stuff, and everybody just said, nope, like that is not my jam, I'm not cool with that, take it all away.
Yeah.
But I wonder if that's because it didn't work, or if that's because people are opposed to change. They want a controller with 2 sticks.
I think it's because people are just scared and afraid of change. I have a theory about why Microsoft's approach didn't work and Sony's did. And it has to do with, catering to those fears. Because when Microsoft first announced it, I was on the boat that I thought all those features were fucking awesome. I love the idea that you were going to have, that family sharing plan where I could lend you a digital version of the game that I'm playing. We could share each other's libraries. All that stuff was an awesome concept. But they made the mistake of making it entirely mandatory. And not only that, but they had awful PR when people were addressing concerns about it. They were entirely too dismissive, with people's criticisms. When I think that kind of spiraled into this whole ball of just negativity towards the system itself. But look at Sony, for example. Sony did this great thing where, PlayStation Plus, it's mandatory to have a PlayStation Plus subscription to play games online right now. It was free before.
Yeah, I hated that.
But you didn't see anybody bat an eye at that transition. And I think it's because they did it so subtly where they started offering the free games with PlayStation Plus that got better and better with quality. They started, adding all these features to PlayStation Plus that by the time when they came in, they said, oh, hey, by the way, it's kind of mandatory now. It just kind of slipped under the radar and nobody complained.
That wasn't my experience. I saw loads of complaining about that. People seem pretty angry about that fact.
Nobody's angry anymore, though.
Yeah, and I just think it was just spread out a little bit more, so it was easier for people to digest. And with Microsoft, I think they were just ahead of the game, and they went too abruptly at it. Because, I imagine they would have had a lot more success if they'd still kept all those features, but pitched them as an optional, hey, if as long as you have your Xbox Live subscription, you have all these extra features optional, and then slowly phased it out to be mandatory. I don't think anybody would have noticed. Or at least it would have been easier to swallow.
Absolutely.
I still don't fully agree with them charging for basic online stuff, because a good example, right? The Crew is always online. You don't need a subscription to PlayStation Plus to play that game, and there are other people in that world with you, even if you don't have PlayStation Plus. But if you want to play with other people, then you have to pay. That seems like it does more harm than good, because the functionality is already there.
And it feels like blackmail. They're holding it away from you, saying you could have this if you were willing to spend money. Nobody likes that.
Yeah, right. Props up every now and then on Reddit, for instance, on the PS4 one, because apparently they now include games in the free games lineup that are below that certain Metacritic number that they promised all the games will be above.
I don't know if that's the people or the company that you would consider to be at fault there. They have to change. They have to do business differently. That's a constantly evolving sort of thing going on, right?
Yeah, that's true.
We can't just always be like, no, that change is not going to work. Have to be a little more receptive to things.
I'm not opposed to stuff changing on new things being introduced, as long as it really adds something to the experience. Because if it doesn't, and it's mandatory, that means that the price of a console goes up significantly. So you have to pay extra for something that you do not want to use.
That's true.
And you've never asked for.
Yeah, that's not good.
Here's a question. Do you guys think as they add more and more stuff to consoles and the price keeps going up and up and up, when they start reaching $700 each, do you think there'll be a kind of a backlash console that it's going to come out and it's just going to be games?
I would hope so.
Could very well be.
That'd be interesting, yeah, for sure. If they keep moving towards this media center strategy, somebody's going to come out and...
I can see Nintendo doing that.
Yeah, hey, we got video games, guys. Remember those?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know, because that strategy hasn't really worked for Nintendo that well to begin with, because that's what they kind of try to do with the Wii U. Because, on the one hand, you had Microsoft and Sony focusing on this whole social atmosphere where, like, oh, you can share games, drop in, drop out, and all. Like, they were really harping on their whole, like, online experience as well. And Nintendo came out saying, hey, guys, we just have really cool games.
And it was priced under as well. The Wii U's cheaper.
Yeah, it was the cheapest console. It was the cheapest console, but it was also the least powerful one out of the three of them.
And it didn't sell as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think your specs on your console got to match up still.
Yeah.
But you have to be able to run the high-end games, but I don't know. I kind of feel like even now consoles are to the point where it's like, I'd rather spend that $500 on my PC.
Oh, I'm with you, especially when the PC can sort of snake its tendrils out of the office and into the living room now.
Yeah, well, I mean, my PC is in the living room, so mine's already there.
Plus, PC doesn't have generations. It's just PC.
Well, I mean, I guess for me, it's kind of interesting because going back, I actually ended up owning both a PlayStation 3 and an Xbox 360, and I found the experience on both of them to be completely different. But this time around, I feel like there's no real difference between the consoles themselves. And like I said, the only reason I got a PlayStation 4 over 360 was because I just happened to have more friends at the time that were going to be online on the PlayStation 4. So it feels like those differences between the consoles, we've almost reached like this baseline where these are the minimum requirements that all consoles need to have at this point to be successful.
It would be nice if for the next generation they would at least try to aim for, 1080p 60 FPS instead of going back and forth between 720, 900 and 1080 and 3060, because that gets annoying really quickly.
I feel like at the end of the day that's not really that important, and the companies themselves just tend to make it a bigger issue than it really has to be.
In some cases, yeah, but like this generation of consoles is obviously not powerful enough to where games are going now. Even on the consoles that look, and the games look less good on consoles than they do on PC, obviously. But even on the less heavy versions of the games that you have on the consoles, they still don't run well. Sometimes even sub 30 FPS. Which is not good.
It's also early in the development cycle of those consoles. Like, it's only been like a year and a half, too. Something like that.
But that was a great excuse for the other generations, because the architecture on those were pretty different from PC. The architecture on the Xbox One and the PS4, they're all 64-bit systems now. Like based on the same architecture as the PC is.
So you think what the eventual squeeze where they managed to work within the constraints for the 360 doesn't apply anymore because they're so close to computers? They should be able to optimize that.
Yeah, if you're used to building games for PC, it should be easier for you to make games for the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One.
Interesting, because I always assumed that it was just like new consoles. Everybody's still figuring out how to dial this in and like squeeze every drop of juice out of this thing. That's why everything's weird right now. But, if they're closer to PCs than anything else, and if people have been developing for PCs for a long time, so I'm not... Yeah. What's the problem then?
Yeah, I remember people being very happy that it was built on the same architecture as a PC, because that would make porting a lot easier. Mm-hmm. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, but it is the same architecture as far as I know. So it not running well.
I don't know what they need. I mean, the truth is everybody needs something else for their living room, and it's just a matter of which console provides the best of like the extra things you need, I suppose.
Yeah. It has to do all the other things that you want a media center to do efficiently on top of it being able to play games. It has to cater to, both demographics, the gamers and the people that like to play games every now and then but mostly watch Netflix.
And that's a tricky proposition to try to put forward for sure.
Yeah, it is. Because I get the feeling that this generation is slightly skewed towards the latter demographic instead of the former.
Yeah, I believe that too. But with the right kind of games, then you sort of inspire people, Here's why you need this upgraded version of a cable box, because it also plays these video games and has a smoother interface for the things you were doing with your regular cable box anyway. Or something like that. Maybe that's the pitch. But I think even at that spot, it still comes around to just making good quality games. And which is great. That's what it should be about. That should be the core of it. And I think a console that made games that were good enough could even get away with not having all that media center stuff. Yeah, it would just be nice.
True. I just remembered something. Like, if they were to build like better consoles with better hardware, that would, of course, kick the price up a notch or a few notches. But at which point it would be easier for you just to get a PC.
Yep.
Because that would be cheaper.
I imagine they're terrified of getting too close to that line.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, they have to be, right?
Well, the Xbox One was very close to that line at the start because it released for like $500 or something like that.
I think it was $499, wasn't it?
Yeah, which was $100 more expensive than the PS4 was.
Yeah, but it was because it had the Kinect bundled in.
Yeah, but around 500, you can get a decent PC for the same price.
Yeah, that's dangerous ground, man, for sure, right? Because then you're definitely looking at, do I want this Xbox or do I want a PC? So they'd have to be careful with any kind of price increases, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I mean, but I think that ties back to why we see consoles that are, like you're saying, like 3 or 4 years behind what the top line, PCs are, because they're considering costs. So they're going to be using purposely outdated hardware just to make sure to keep the prices down.
Plus, they know that most of their installed user base don't care. They've had loyal fans for years. They know what they're buying into most of the time. And for some reason, there's this whole thing going around that people think that gaming on a PC can only be done if you've got a $2,000 PC, which is strange.
Yeah, or only keyboard and mouse. People don't... The controller stuff isn't really as widespread as it could be. Or the fact that you can use your PC in the living room. There's a lot of sort of awareness campaign stuff going on around all that.
Although, actually, that's a funny thing to bring up now, because Microsoft is kind of taking steps to almost create one consistent ecosystem between PC and console, because I think now Windows 10 will allow you to actually play Xbox One games on it.
Yeah, you can stream Xbox One games over your network to your PC, which is something that you want for some reason.
I don't want that. I want it the opposite way.
Yeah, they are looking into that, actually. So that might become a reality.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a kind of interesting step to take, because, so far we've been talking about the distinction between console and PC, and console, it kind of holds that market share on the living room space, but with this kind of step in that direction, it kind of blurs the lines a bit more.
Yeah, but that sort of removes the need for a console entirely. If you can stream your games to your console, why would you buy games for your console if you can just play your PC games on it? It becomes a $400, a very expensive streaming box for your PC games.
That's true. I don't think we've seen exactly how well some of these cheaper alternatives are going to be able to stream, though. Like the dongles and stuff like that. I really hope that they work as well as they say they do, but I'm still using a pretty decent laptop for my in-home streaming sort of stuff, right?
Yeah, and I don't think, as far as the consoles go, I don't think we're at a spot where people are just buying consoles now for the games anymore. I think they're buying it because of all these extra features that come along with them. So
I did. Yep.
Yeah, so if Microsoft releases, like down the line, they kind of come up with a system where your Xbox and computer are going to be able to stream back and forth. If anything, that kind of makes the Xbox like a better alternative for people to buy now.
Oh, yeah, because of the versatility. Yeah, that is a good point. Consoles, they're a thing.
All right, for those of you playing the home game, we're now going to move along into our play-along segment. This week we played the Stanley Parable, and the following segment will contain spoilers. That's why we decided to put it at the end. If in the future spoilers are a thing that worries you, then play along with us. Play a game a week, and we'd love to hear your thoughts on it. So that's how you get around it. We put it at the end so you can turn it off, or play along with us and send us your notes. This week we were playing the Stanley Parable.
Yes.
Which is a very interesting game. Absolutely kind of wild narratively, right?
I would hazard to call it a game.
I felt like I was on an acid trip that whole time.
Yeah, man. It's more like an interactive social commentary on what games are.
And sort of the choice aspect of all that.
Yeah, or why it's an illusion. One thing that was absolutely amazing about that game is the narrator. The way that the guy delivers his lines, it's spot on. It's perfect. It's so well done.
And the writing is just phenomenal, yes. I felt. I really liked it.
Yes, it is.
I didn't know anything about going into the game, and I just, bought it and played it, and it was weird, man.
Weird good or weird bad? What do you think?
It gave me the same feeling, and I was just talking to Chris about this the other day, but you know the show Wilfred?
Yeah, with the dog.
It gave me the same feeling as watching that show.
Does it make you uncomfortable in a way?
Yeah, it's like a good, uncomfortable... but at the same time, you're kind of nervous because you don't trust it.
Not sure exactly what's going on. Yeah, you don't know if it's delivering you like a truthful narrative.
Yeah, and it was creeping me out how the narrator, he had like a perfect line for everything you were doing. Yeah. And but then I thought about it and I was like, wait, the only options I have are the ones that they planned for to be in the game. So he would have a perfect narrative, but it was just weird how one of the stories that I thought was really funny was when you go into the break room and he's like, and Stanley stood there taking in the break room, and then so you stand there like because you think you're supposed to take it in, and then he's like, yeah, this is really worth it, like keep standing there, and you're like, okay, well, you told me to stand here, and just it was just like there was something for every little instance that you could possibly do.
And I think that's the one that when you loop through again, it's actually like boarded off so that you can't get back in there.
Yeah.
Dude, no, what tripped me out was I went through, I guess, a story segment where I don't know what chain of events led to it, but I guess I deviated it enough from the supposed narration to where I guess like the narrator couldn't get back to the main story. So he kept resetting the game, and every time he reset the game, like it would, I guess we couldn't find our way back to the way the story was supposed to be like. So I think at one point he put in like a narration line where we were supposed to follow the line, and the line went crazy.
Yeah, the adventure line.
Yeah, and then he's like, you know what? Fuck it, we're not gonna follow the line. Let's make our own adventure. And then like the world started falling apart, and it was like a weird Alice in Wonderland like psycho trip.
Yeah.
Something similar happened. Did you guys unplug the phone?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I never got to that.
That one's pretty great because in the end, you sort of despawn because the whole game sort of crashes and you despawn above the first room with the two doors, but you can see Stanley standing there. And without you to inhabit him, he cannot do anything. And then the narrator gets really sad and
he like breaks
insecure.
down almost.
Yeah, he does. Like, Stanley, are you there? I really need you to make a choice. That one was my absolute favorite ending because it was dark. It was very dark, and it made you think about choice in video games. Without you, there is no game. The narrative can't be propelled forward without your explicit say so. And the game acknowledging that in that way, I thought was very, very well done.
I thought it was really bizarre. I think one of the endings takes you to almost like you go to the roof and there's nothing but space. And I guess it's after you defy the narrator a few times and you finally, I guess like he goes, please just trust me. I'll take you to happiness. I swear. Then I think if you finally listen to him, he takes you to this platform and it's just like space and colors. And he's like, this is it, Stanley. This is pure bliss. And all you do is stand there and you have really no choice. Nothing happens to that point. So after a while of standing there, you're kind of like, okay, so you can turn around, go back down the hallway, and the narrator is like, no, what are you doing? Like, you're leaving our pure bliss. And I think you go up to this stairway that you can walk to the very top, and your only option at that point is to kill yourself. Yeah. And it's funny because you can jump off once and you don't die, but the narrator's like, oh my God, Stanley, don't do this. Please don't end your life. It's so bizarre.
Yes, yeah, it is.
I think that's close to the one where you end up waking up in a completely different reality.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Or it's just like a lady ends up looking down at your dead body.
Yeah,
because I guess
like just another guy who just went crazy. Yeah,
that one was great as well. Yeah, you have to go to the basement to do that instead of upstairs to your boss's room. You sort of try to wake yourself up because Stanley thinks that he's in a dream, but it turns out that he's just stark raving mad and he died somewhere on the street.
And I find it kind of telling. I guess I thought it was very poetic that the only way to get the quote-unquote perfect ending, which is like the freedom ending, is if you actually do everything the narrator tells you.
Yeah, so I wanted to, like, because I'm sure we all came to that one. Did we all reach the beat the game?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I thought it was, like, kind of funny, like, the way you defeat the mind control machine is by pretty much being controlled by the narrator. So I was like, haha, that's kind of funny. What weirded me out about this game, like when I realized, like it made me really uncomfortable, was when you get to that end platform and you know how he says you can either turn on or off the machine. Well, if you turn it on, did any of you guys do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it gives you that
the blow
up,
thing, right?
And then so you're like running around the room. At least I was running around the room trying to figure out how to like stop it. Yeah. And then
that room has so many different flips and switches and toggles and just all kinds of...
I was trying to look for a pattern like on how to fix this, and then the narrator comments, he's like, you're probably looking for a pattern among all the buttons, and I was like, whoa, I don't like this anymore. Like,
yeah, he sort of reassures you that there is no pattern. You just have to wait until you die.
I still feel like there should be a pattern. Even though it's like as many times as I've gone through it and not been able to find one, they did a really good job of making you think.
Yeah.
It's like you're so conditioned by other games. You're like so trained to do it. Like, oh, these numbers have buttons. I better press them in order or something, you know?
It's numbers or it's colors or like, let me follow these wires to a certain place. Like, you've got all this conditioning of puzzle solving built up.
Learned behavior. We've come back full circle.
But it just freaked me out. It's like, man, he said that and I was like, I've totally been trained to like, you know, I might as well be a dog. Like, these games have totally trained me on what to do.
You know what really bothered me about that too? And it goes back to like the experience I had when I was playing BioShock and you get like the would you kindly twist. Mm-hmm. But with Stanley Parable, it's like you realize just how easy it is to script the entire player's behavior, even to the point where you can be given the illusion of choice, but in reality you're still just going along with the paths that they give you. Because like Ryan was saying, you know, you do these things where like, you know what, I'm gonna, you know, just for shits and giggles, I'm gonna do this instead and completely throw the narrator off, and he has the perfect line for it. Mm-hmm. But after a while, you realize that the only reason he has the perfect line is because the developers intended for you for that to be a choice, and it's like this whole meta mindfuck where you realize that nothing you do in a game is a result of free will. It's a result of being pushed in that direction one way or another.
Yeah, they control the whole space, and like when we were talking about, you know, how story in games sort of applies in like a choose your own adventure way, and all it is just iterating through a series of possibilities and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. It really made me think of the Stanley Parable, and I thought, you know, we should definitely play this game because it is the perfect example of how convoluted that stuff can be, but still, like you said, you know, you're still traveling down along a set pathway. It's just that it splinters out into so many different directions.
Yeah, and this one makes a great case for branching stories as well, because even though you make a lot of quote-unquote choices, every single choice that you make is on par in terms of quality with all the other ones.
Yeah.
I still hold that first choice is like the granddaddy of all of them. Like when you first start playing and you walk up and the narrator says, and Stanley took the door on the left, and you stop. And you say, wait a minute. You know, and you look at the door on the left and you're like, I could take that door, but wait a minute, there's a door on the right.
Yeah.
And like just being frozen in that one little moment of time is like my favorite part of the game. Like everything that comes after is amazing and it all builds on that. Mm-hmm. But that one critical first left or right sort of thing is what I thought was the best part.
Plus, he tries to push you back to go left when you go right. He opens like a door, and you can even walk into a broom closet. And then he says something like, Stanley walked into the broom closet, but there was nothing there, so he had to go back on the path.
Actually, I like the fact that when you first start the game and you're sitting in your office, you actually have the option to close the door and just not participate at all.
Really?
That's right.
Yeah. I only discovered that by accident because, you know, like, first thing you do when you get a game is obviously try out all the commands and controls. So I'm in the office, I'm looking around, I'm like, oh, let me see if there's something I can click on. So I was just kind of clicking wildly, and I turn to the door and I close it. And the narrator begins his narration saying, you know, but Stanley refused to participate in this. And he kind of talks about how you decided to just go with your mundane life and just decide not to participate in the game, and it was just really trippy. And I thought that was a really cool like little nod they put in there.
The job that Stanley has is an allegory for gamers in general, isn't it? You sit
just to
there
push buttons.
and you press buttons when you get the commands to press them.
Which is like you follow the instructions that are given to you.
Exactly, and that's what it opens with. I mean, I think it's brilliant.
What do you guys think? Because I noticed this. You know, when you click, there's a typing noise.
Yeah.
What do you think that was all about? A bark?
You can change it to a bark.
Oh,
what?
You guys? Did you guys not activate the command console?
No.
Mm-mm.
You can activate the command console, and you can put in commands. And one of them is like instead of the click, you can actually put it like activate. So whenever you interact with something, it makes the bark, which is really random.
That's
Say
weird.
what?
No, my favorite one, actually, from the command console, you can actually input a cheat. And if you input the cheat, the narrator stops you, brings you to this room, and reprimands you for trying to cheat the game. And he tells you that you're going to sit there and think about what you did, and he just leaves you alone.
Oh, I don't like this.
Nice.
I don't like this.
Dude, it's so weird. I
What?
know.
That's amazing.
And it's so creepy that like the narrators actually managed to create this, I guess, this narrative experience where every possible choice you think you can make within the confines of the game, you think you're fooling the game or you're going against your free will, but in reality, like they accounted for everything. And it just blows my mind.
Yeah, it's a testament to their diligence.
Yeah, even not making the choice is something that they thought about, because at some point, if you don't pick something, you get to watch like a 2-minute long video about choice.
Yeah,
so the game stops and it just gives you a 2-minute video explaining to you what choice is.
Yeah, like why you should. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess Rush was right.
Dude, I mean, I actually really enjoyed the Stanley Parable just because it made me happily uncomfortable, just because there was just a lot of things that I wasn't really prepared to kind of question myself as a player.
Yeah.
One detail that I loved is about how even if you played the same story, I guess like the same path, you'll notice little changes. I think there's there's a random chance where the office will be a little bit different when you go into it, or there'll be papers all over the floor, or there'll just be subtle differences in it. That, or I think when you get to your boss's office, I think if you've played it a few times, sometimes he won't even make you go through the narration, like, because normally you're supposed to walk in.
Oh, yeah, because you already know the code.
Yeah.
And he's like, you know what? Fuck it. Like, I'll just open the door for you since you already know the code.
So,
that's great.
What did you guys, going back to the two-door thing, on your first decision, what did you guys do? Did you obey, or?
I went to the right door, because I'm trained.
Right immediately.
I'm trained into
I went left.
This exploration mode where whenever a game tells me that I have to go a certain way, I'm like, oh, well, obviously, if that's where I have to go, there's going to be rewards if I go this way, like, because it's off the beaten path.
Yep, that's what I did as well.
Oh, well, I disobeyed him, but I think that was just out of being stubborn. I didn't care about any of that kind of stuff. I was just like, oh, screw this guy. I'm going to the right.
Did you make it to the cargo bay?
The cargo bay.
Yeah, I guess like where you get into that little
where
freight.
The museum was with all the little weird, like all white museum with the developer notes and stuff like that.
Yeah, that was actually really cool. I mean, like the museum. But I'm talking about like I think it's when you disobey him, you end up in like the maintenance hallway or whatever, and you get onto this platform, and the platform just kind of moves you along. It's right before the phone ending.
Yeah. And you can jump down from the freight thing to die, and that is a different ending.
But I got the death ending.
Mm-hmm.
I jumped.
Or you can actually jump off that little freight elevator into the walkway, and that takes you to a whole different story.
Yeah, I like the bit with the phone, because he tries to egg you on. You know, he tries to make you take the phone, even going as far as to say this is your wife, and she wants to speak to you. She wants to know that you're all right. Like, really trying to play on your emotions.
It's so creepy.
It is, yeah. And that like the way that he spoke made me take out the plug from the wall, just shut the whole thing down. Man. Yeah, it's very special.
When I was playing it, like, I was like, is this even a game? Like, this is a weird other thing that I don't know if it should exist.
It touches on a lot of stuff that we were talking about. It just ties a lot of the concepts together really nicely. I thought it would be a good one.
It was definitely a fun experience.
And it sounds like you all enjoyed it.
Yeah, yes, I plan to keep playing it every once in a while when I feel like not enjoying like my concept of games. I'll just play the Stanley Parable and be like, oh, games are all mind control.
Yeah, when you're in the mood for feeling horribly depressed, you can just play that for about 10 minutes.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it was a good game, Sam. Thank you.
Yeah,
it was great to pick that up again, because I hadn't played it for quite some time.
It's a goodie. All right, so let's see. Enrique, what are we playing next week?
Okay, well, I'm going to actually take us a little bit out of our comfort zones, because I realize a lot of the games that we play are usually kind of Western-style RPGs or shooters kind of thing.
Oh, no, so, it's Japanese stuff, isn't it?
Oh, not only that, I want to get us into the realm of visual novels. And a very specific one called Hatoful Boyfriend. Which is
that with the pigeons?
Yes, it's a post-apocalyptic game where pigeons rule the world, and you were the first human exchange student at a pigeon academy.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's do that.
I am so in.
I mean, I'd see the movie, so I guess. What's it called?
A Hatoful Boyfriend.
Yeah.
It's really interesting, but it's mainly because it's the genre it's a visual novel, which these are actually really popular in Japan specifically, where they're almost like choose your own adventure style stories, where they're very heavy on dialogue, and a lot of the I guess it's kind of like the Stanley Parable in a way, where your choices affect how the story progresses, but it's just done in a visual medium.
Okay.
So I thought it'd be a fun thing for us to try.
Yeah, I've heard enough about that game. Color me interested. Yeah, this is a good excuse to actually play that.
It's for an assignment, I swear.
Awesome. All right, so this week we will be playing Hatoful Boyfriend. If you want to play it along with us and send us your thoughts and notes, you can send those to selectcharacters@gmail.com. and we will keep an eye out for that. So other than that, good episode, guys. And that concludes episode 14 of the Select Characters podcast. Thank you very much for tuning in this week. As always, you can find us online at Facebook and Twitter. You can send us an email to selectcharacters@gmail.com. If you have a topic you'd like to suggest, or if you have any other questions or comments, we're around and we'd love to hear from you. Thank you. Have a great week.